I never imagined a little girl's heartbreaking plea would change everything for her. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The world around me came crashing down as I stood there, frozen in disbelief, my heart pounding like drums in a silent room. Her tiny voice echoed through the air, trembling and filled with an urgency that I couldn't ignore. "Please, help me find my mommy." She tugged at my sleeve, her eyes wide, sparkling with unshed tears, reflecting a confusion that felt alien to my own adult problems. It was as if she could sense the storm brewing inside me, a child reaching for an anchor in a turbulent sea. The streets were a blur of noise, bustling with life yet utterly desolate in that moment. People brushed past, unaware of the mounting tension. I glanced around. Car horns blared, vendors shouted their wares, and children laughed in the distance. But all I could focus on was the little girl, her trembling hands and quivering lip. She wore a faded pink dress too big for her small frame, and her shoes were scuffed, as if she'd been running for too long through the chaos. That I knelt down to her level, my chest tight with unease. "What happened? Where did you see her last?" The words felt foreign on my tongue, heavy with the weight of my own uncertainties. I needed to be strong, but doubt crept into my mind like an unwelcome guest. I don't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the thrumming of my heart. "I was playing, and then she was gone. Just gone." Her eyes searched mine, and I felt a rush of protectiveness wash over me. I wanted to take her hand, to tell her everything would be okay, but what if it didn't? I had spent years training myself to push those thoughts aside, to be strong, but here, faced with her innocence, the cracks began to show. For a second, a faint scent of cotton candy drifted through the air, mixing with the salty breeze from the nearby ocean. It reminded me of better days, summer fairs, twinkling lights against the night sky. I shook my head, forcing my focus back to her. "Let's find your mommy together," I said, my voice wavering despite my resolve. Her gaze lit up for a brief moment, and in that instant, I caught a glimpse of hope amid the darkness threatening to engulf us both. We began walking, hand in hand, but as we moved further into the crowd, I sensed something strange. A chill crawled down my spine, the hairs on my arms standing on end. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, eyes boring into us from the shadows. Each step forward felt like we were descending deeper into a labyrinth of unanswered questions. Around us, shadows shifted, strangers exchanged hurried whispers, and the laughter of children turned sinister, echoing in my ears. I glanced down at the little girl, whose expression shifted from hope to fear, mirroring my own. What were we walking into? The deeper we went, the more questions piled up, bristling like static in the air. Just then, our eyes locked and she whispered, "What if we never find her?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, and I realized I had no answer. The world blurred around us, with my heart racing faster than I could keep up. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A knot tightened in my stomach as the little girl's anxious words pierced through the thickening haze of uncertainty that surrounded us. What if we never find her? The fear in her voice mirrored my own, conjuring flashes of my past, of moments when I felt utterly lost, when I had cried out for someone to find me. "Listen," I said softly, squeezing her small hand tighter. "We will find her. I promise." The words felt like a fragile shield, and I fought to believe in them even as doubt clung to the edges of my mind. We plunged deeper into the thrumming crowd, the sunlight dimming as the buildings loomed taller and closer together. Each passerby seemed to glance at us with a mix of indifference and concern, their expressions flipping like pages in a book I couldn't read. I felt like a ghost in my own life, skepticism swirling around me like leaves caught in an autumn wind. We passed a street vendor selling brightly colored balloons, their buoyancy an embodiment of joy, and for a fleeting moment, the little girl's eyes sparkled. "Look!" she exclaimed, pointing with an unguarded smile. "Can I have one?" The glimpse of her innocence broke through the fog of despair momentarily. I was about to shake my head, to remind her of the journey ahead, when something stopped me. In her earnest plea, I saw the familiar years of childhood wonder that had been overshadowed in my own life. "Just one," I said, letting go of her hand for a heartbeat as I approached the vendor. I handed over a few crumpled bills, glancing back to see her eyes widen as I returned with a red heart-shaped balloon. "It's so pretty!" She clutched it tightly, and her laughter twinkled like distant bells, momentarily dispelling the heaviness we were cloaked in. But the joy was short-lived. The laughter faded, a whisper of an echo chased away by a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The crowd around us felt less dense and more chaotic, as if a current of anxiety surged through the people. My instincts kicked in, and I couldn't shake the sensation that we were being pursued. Where was her mother? How could anyone just vanish in a blink? As I watched the girl, I felt an overwhelming wave of responsibility crash over me. It was more than simply finding her mother. It was about guiding her through the storm of fears she faced. "Stay close to me," I urged, my voice steadying only for her sake. I led her around a corner into a side street, escaping for a moment from the bustling noise, drawing a breath of what felt like stale air. The buildings here were older, the walls lined with peeling paint, the atmosphere heavy. But as I looked into her wide, frightened eyes, an unexpected warmth washed over me. I whispered, "You're so brave. Do you want to tell me about your mommy while we search?" Her small face lit up, and she nodded fiercely. "She has curly hair that smells like flowers. And she sings the best songs." I could almost hear the melody she spoke of, though my heart felt like a barren drum. I focused on her words, weaving them into a thread connecting us in this uncertain world. Yet as her soft voice painted her mother in vivid colors, I felt the pressing realization that I had never truly understood such loss within a loss. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the distance, pulling us back into the chaotic reality. It was a man's voice, full of fury, cutting through the murmur like a knife. My heart pounded. "Where is she? What did you do?" I turned to the little girl, who had gone pale, the balloons slipping from her fingers and deflating against the unforgiving ground. "We have to go," I said, urgency infusing my words as I seized her hand again. We moved faster this time, but as we ran, I could feel the heat of someone close behind us, pushing through the crowd like a predator honing in on its prey. Fear curled around my spine like a vice, squeezing tighter with each step. "Please help me find her." The girl's plea echoed in my mind, now twisted with my urgency to protect her. I didn't know what was waiting for us at the end of this chase, but there were no options left, only profound desperation fueling our legs. As we rounded another corner, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A woman stood still against the wall, dressed oddly for the scene, her face obscured by the shadow of her hood. "Stop!" she called out, her voice calm yet demanding. My heart raced as I stopped, the little girl tugging at me to keep moving, but something about the woman's presence was magnetizing, a wave of familiarity washing over me, though I couldn't pinpoint it. The girl's grip tightened on my hand, fear radiating from her tiny frame. "Who are you?" I breathed, instinctively stepping closer to shield the girl from potential harm. The stranger took a step forward, her gaze unwavering as she slowly pulled back her hood, revealing a face I never thought I'd see again. In that moment, my entire world tilted, as the unexpected revelation left me teetering on the edge of understanding, uncertainty planted firmly in my heart. The world around us shrank to a dizzying blur as the woman's face came into focus. Emotions tumbled in my chest, disbelief, anger, relief all crashing together like waves against a rocky shore. "Miriam?" I whispered, hardly able to form the name that had been locked away in the vault of my memory for too long. She nodded slowly, her eyes shimmering with something akin to regret, but fear bloomed on the little girl's face. "Who is she?" the girl whispered, pulling at my sleeve, urging me to lead her away. "It's okay," I reassured her, my voice trembling slightly. "This is someone I used to know." A flood of memories rushed back, sunlit afternoons and laughter that echoed in long-forgotten corners of my mind. But this wasn't a reunion laden with warmth. This was a reckoning. Miriam, I repeated, louder now, anger threading through my words. What are you doing here? Why are you hiding? She took a careful step forward, her hands raised as if to offer peace. I came to find you, she said, her voice steady despite the heavy air. I didn't think you'd be here, not like this. The little girl's confusion deepened. Find who? What's going on? Listen to me, I said urgently, my gaze snapping back to Miriam. There's a little girl who needs her mother, and we can't waste time. Your past doesn't matter right now. Her presence felt like a thread pulling at long-buried scars, and the urgency to protect the girl overwhelmed me completely. I can help, Miriam said, her voice steady, but I sensed the subtle tremor beneath her facade. I know where she might be. Who? The word escaped my lips, laced with suspicion. It felt as though she held some dark knowledge, a key to the chaos we found ourselves in. But before she could answer, a shadow flickered behind her, an instinct kicked in. Go! I barked at the girl, pushing her behind me as I stepped forward protectively. A figure emerged, tall and menacing, ripping through the narrow alleyway that separated us from safety. You won't get away! The man growled, fury twisting his features. You can't run forever! My heart pounded against my chest as I grabbed the little girl's shoulders, squeezing gently to keep her grounded. Stay close! I yelled, searching for any way out. I felt choked by the feeling of inadequacy, the bitter weight of not knowing how to protect her, and felt my mind whirl with desperate possibilities. Miriam's face paled as she turned towards the man. Please, just let the girl go. She has nothing to do with this. The man laughed, a harsh, unforgiving sound. Not true. He pointed a finger at the girl, whose eyes filled with a mix of fear and confusion. She's the key. And you know it. Key to what? I demanded, confusion mixing with fear. These words felt like punchlines in a joke I hadn't been invited to. The laughter of the man echoed in the alley, suffocating hope with every hollow note. Miriam hesitated, her eyes darting between us. Something passed between us in that fleeting moment, an understanding tinged with unspoken history. She needs to be with her mother. We can't let them enough. I shouted, the sudden surge of anger blooming inside me, overwhelming the fear. Enough of this. If you know something, you need to say it. The man took a step forward, a predator closing in on its prey, and I felt the little girl trembling against me, each shudder pulling me deeper into a whirlwind of anxiety. Miriam, I pleaded, desperation coloring my words. Tell me what's going on. But her gaze remained locked on the man, caught in an unseen battle waging just beneath the surface. Before she could respond, the ground shook as sirens wailed in the distance, a piercing sound echoing through the streets, mingling with the chaos of our situation. The man's expression shifted from confidence to something that resembled panic. You won't win this time, he growled before taking off down the alleyway, his figure disappearing into the thrumming crowd. Time slowed as I gripped the little girl's hand tighter, anticipation hanging heavy in the air like a storm cloud about to burst. The sirens drew closer, a glimmer of hope cutting through the heaviness. We need to move, I said, turning back to Miriam. How do you know about her mother? Before I could get an answer, Miriam stepped forward, her face pale with urgency. I promise I'll explain everything, but we have to go. And then it hit me, a jarring realization that clawed at my heart. Why did you say you came to find me? The words hung between us, filled with the weight of past mistakes and a past that refused to remain buried. Miriam hesitated, the shadow of regret clawing at her features. There are things you don't understand about the girl, about her mother, and as I met her eyes, a chilling sense of dread coursed through me, the secrets swirling around us like a storm. Just then, from the corner of my vision, a figure appeared, someone I never expected to see, and their presence sent a shiver down my spine as everything changed. Let's go, I urged, feeling time slipping through my fingers. Courage crumbled within me at the edge of revelation, caught between the impending storm of truths and a promise to protect the innocent. In that chaotic moment, I held on to one thought, Everything I had feared was about to unfold in a way that would rip apart everything I believed. The world around us was thick with uncertainty, each heartbeat amplified by the pounding of the sirens drawing closer. The little girl, still clutching my hand, glanced fleetingly at Miriam, her wide eyes reflecting a quiet terror that made my heart ache. If only I could shield her from the chaos that surrounded us. "Who is that?" I whispered, nodding slightly towards the new figure edging into our line of sight. The woman moved with a peculiar grace, her features strikingly familiar, yet hauntingly different. It was as if a wisp of a ghost from my past had materialized to haunt me in my present turmoil. Miriam's voice faltered, her resolve wavering as her gaze flicked between the woman and me. The heavy atmosphere filled the air with unanswered questions, and the weight of her hesitation twisted my stomach into knots. As the woman stepped closer, a pang of recognition hit me, a fleeting moment, colliding with the memory of days when life felt uncomplicated, overflowing with endearing laughter and sunny afternoons. My breath caught when I dared to connect the pieces. She was someone from my past, someone I thought I'd never see again. The realization settled in the back of my mind like a heavy stone. "Miriam!" the woman called out, her voice desperate. "We have to go. They're coming." I turned to face Miriam, questioning her again through my piercing gaze, needing an explanation, but nothing seemed to come. Instead, the little girl's grip tightened around my fingers, her small frame shaking like a leaf caught in a storm. "Please," she whispered. "I want to go home. I want my mom." A fresh wave of determination surged within me. "They'll find her, I promise," I said firmly, voice low but resolute. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with an unwavering trust that pierced my heart. And yet, the unnerving gravity of the situation threatened to crush that trust beneath its weight. "Miriam, who is she?" I finally demanded, my voice a mix of urgency and resolve. The woman, now only a few feet away, glared at me, her eyes sharp. "You don't understand. If we don't get out of here, neither do you." "But she's a child. We can't just leave her," I interrupted, my voice breaking with emotion. "Enough!" Miriam snapped, her gaze fierce, yet tinged with sorrow. "You think you can protect her from this? From what's coming? We need to move now, before they realize we're here." The air around us was electric, fraught with panic and the threat of imminent danger. The sirens wailed, fading for the briefest moment before enveloping the alleyway again, a haunting reminder that our time was running out. "Please," the little girl said, her small face crumpled in anguish, and every flicker of her distress felt like a knife through my heart. "I don't want to be scared anymore." With one swift motion, I knelt down, bringing myself to her level. "I know you're scared," I said softly, willing to bridge the gap between her terror and the reassurance she so vividly needed. "But we're going to be okay. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Just then, a gust of wind swept through the alley, bringing with it the unmistakable scent of rain on pavement, a reminder that storms aren't only found in the sky. They also lurked within the walls of memories and whispered secrets, threatening to collapse everything we held dear. The woman watched us intently, and something in her expression shifted, an overwhelming sense of vulnerability flashing behind her steely facade. "I know it might not mean anything right now, but I'm here to help. You can trust me." The sincerity in her voice disarmed me, even if only for a second, allowing a flicker of hope to ignite. I nodded slowly, trying to pull together an inkling of trust amid my fear. "Miriam, tell me," I demanded. "What is happening? Why is this girl so important?" But before she could answer, a thunderous crash echoed from the entrance of the alley. My blood ran cold as I turned to see shadows emerging from the darkness, figures gathering like wolves drawing closer to their prey. "Run!" I yelled, instinctively grabbing the little girl and ushering her toward the back of the alley, hoping to find a way out. As we sped past murmurs of danger and the impending whispers of betrayal, a single thought consumed me. Time was slipping through my fingers like sand, and I had to navigate this chaos to keep both the girl and the truth alive. "Miriam! We can't leave!" The urgency surged like fire in my veins, but she hesitated, glancing back at the woman, emotions shimmering in her eyes, a silent dialogue that felt heavy with the weight of our intertwined histories. And in that heartbeat, as the shadows loomed closer, I realized all I held on to was the slimmest thread of hope, a hope that we could find the girl's mother. A hope that perhaps we might unearth the answers buried deep within the tumult of our pasts. In the eye of the storm, as I turned to push the girl ahead of me, I felt the woman's hand clasp my shoulder tightly. "We can't go back," she said, her voice laced with urgency I couldn't yet comprehend. "If you want the truth, you have to be willing to make sacrifices." But sacrifice loomed large in my mind, heavy and uncertain. I was already standing on the precipice. And as I turned back to face the unfolding chaos, heart racing, I realized we had one chance to unveil the truth before it consumed us all. And with that, we broke into a sprint, feet pounding against the pavement, hearts echoing the desperate rhythm of survival, only to find the alley ahead, shrouded in even deeper darkness. The next emotional tremor trembled within me. Would we find safety, or were we destined to become pawns in a game we didn't understand? The pounding of our footsteps against the cold pavement seemed like a war drum, and in that moment, the chaotic world around us faded into a blur of adrenaline and urgency. Each breath was laden with an unshakable dread, yet the little girl's small hand intertwined with mine anchored me, reminding me that her life, her fears, depended on my resolve. As we sprinted towards the uncertain darkness of the alley ahead, a flicker of doubt sparked within my mind. Where were we even going? I felt the woman's presence, sharp and intense, close behind us, a specter of the past chasing us towards an uncertain future. I could sense her struggling to find words, yet she remained silent, as if the secrets of our shared history weighed too heavily on them to emerge now. Suddenly, the little girl stumbled, pulling me back to focus. "I can't run any more," she panted, her face flushed and eyes wide with fear. In that instant, the unstoppable momentum came to a halt, and I instinctively knelt beside her, framing her little face between my hands. "I am so sorry," I whispered, my voice cracking. "You're doing so well. Just a little farther, I promise." Her frail nod broke my heart further, each brush of her small fingers against my skin intensifying my desperation. As we paused, I looked back toward the entrance of the alley. The shadows had gathered closer, dark and foreboding. They moved stealthily, their outlines fluid, like dark water swallowing the light. A part of me screamed to keep running, to shield the child from whatever fate lingered just outside our senses, and yet another part knew I couldn't bear to abandon the woman because, deep down, she represented everything I had lost. "What do we do?" I turned to the woman, anxiety slipping into my voice. "What's our next move?" She took a step closer, her expression shifting from urgency to a tempest of emotions I couldn't decipher. "We have to find a way out of here, but they're looking for you. For her. We can't lead them straight to us." "Then what?" I demanded, the edges of my voice trembling. "What do we have to sacrifice?" Before she could respond, a cacophony of dissonant sounds erupted in the night air. The sirens blared louder now, nearer than ever, their sinister melody mixing with the sound of heavy boots trampling the ground, echoing down the alleyway. Panic flared in our chests, each heartbeat a reminder of the ticking clock that dictated our fate. "Miriam!" I called, anxiety pooling in my stomach. "We can't stay here." A noise rumbled behind us, and my gut twisted as I felt the presence of figures drawing nearer. Without thinking, I scooped the little girl into my arms. Her soft whimper echoed muffled against my chest as I darted forward, desperation clawing at my throat. I caught the woman's eye, and against my better judgment, beckoned her to follow. At the far end of the alley, a dim light flickered beneath the door, just barely visible. Our salvation? Or a trap? With every step, I wondered if I was leading the little girl to safety or deeper into danger. I forced myself to believe the former. This was my promise, a solemn vow forged in that moment of connection where innocent trust pierced through the darkness. "Over there." The woman pointed towards the door, urgency skyrocketing. "We can hide, it's a storeroom. We can find a way to escape from there." The idea sparked slender strands of hope, and I rushed toward the door, hitting it with the weight of my body. It creaked open into a dim space, a musty smell enveloping us as we stepped inside. I held my breath. Though we were shielded from the chaos outside, I could still sense the edges of danger clawing at the door behind us. We huddled together in the shadowy corner, the little girl's head resting against my shoulder, allowing her weariness to catch up to her. I could see the fear etched in her features even in the faint light, but I whispered to her softly, filling the quiet air with the remnants of hopeful promises. "Just rest for a moment," I murmured, holding her close. "We'll be okay. I won't let anyone take you." The weight of each word felt like vine tendrils, twisting around my heart, securing my resolve even amidst faltering fears. Silence enveloped us, a deceptive calm that only heightened the tension in my chest. I glanced at the woman, her face slightly illuminated by a flickering light, emotion swirling in her gaze. But before I could voice my question, heavy footsteps approached outside the door. Panic surged, begging for release. "Miriam, what's happening?" I managed to ask, forcing urgency into my tone. "Stay quiet," she hissed, barely audible, her eyes wide with understanding. "If they catch you," a loud crash broke the stillness, and I held the little girl tighter, feeling her body shake against mine. The door rattled violently, as if the shadows were hungry and determined, intent on breaching our fragile sanctuary. My heart raced, the threat looming over us refusing to dissipate. In that charged moment, a shattering realization dawned upon me: salvation was never guaranteed. We had plunged into the depths of chaos, and the only certainty was that someone among us carried an unforgiving truth that might yet tear us apart, even if we found a way out. The door splintered, groaning under the pressure of what was to come as the darkness loomed ever closer, a truth of betrayal shrouded in secretia, truth that whispered promises of hope on one side and shadows of despair on the other. As the door burst open, illuminating the room with wild light, my heart thundered. I braced myself for the reckoning, knowing well that whatever was about to unfold could alter the course of our lives forever. The door flung open, crashing against the wall with a force that sent a jolt through my body. The sudden brightness momentarily blinded me, and as my eyes adjusted, I felt the weight of dread nestling in the pit of my stomach. There stood a figure silhouetted against the harsh light, their outline a grotesque echo of authority. It was then I understood the depth of our peril. "Miriam!" the figure barked. "We know you're in here. There's no escape." The little girl whimpered against my side, her small fingers gripping the fabric of my shirt, her innocence painfully palpable. I willed myself to project calmness, but the anxiety cascading through me felt insurmountable. The woman next to me tensed, her body rigid with fear, and for a fleeting moment, I could see her grappling with the weight of her decisions, her history, and the choices that led us to this sordid juncture. "Miriam, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way," the figure continued, voice dripping with authority. "I don't want this to get messy. Stay close," I whispered to the little girl, my breath rapid and shallow. Every inch of me ached to leap into action, to shield her from this nightmare, but my mind raced, plotting the impossible paths we could take in this unrelenting darkness. "Miriam, if you care at all, come out with your hands up." The figure roared again, the threat hung in the air, twisted with anticipation, like a noose tightening around our throats. For a reason I could not comprehend, beyond the fear that entwined us, Miriam's features softened into something almost serene as she stepped forward from the shadows. "You don't understand," she cried, her voice cracking. "In trying to protect her, she's innocent." "Innocent?" The figure sneered, his voice laced with derision as he stepped further into the room. "Tell me, what makes you think they care about innocence?" "They want her because of you." The heaviness of his words crushed me, and I felt the world narrowing to the little girl's frightened gaze locked on Miriam. This wasn't just about our safety anymore. It was about a past that had clawed its way back to haunt us, threatening to pull the innocent into its abyss. Panic surged alongside the realization. There was a hidden truth that was more than just a betrayal. A moment stretched longer than time itself as I recalled fragmented memories of whispered conversations, half-truths, and choices that spiraled too far out of control. It was a sickening combination of fear and acceptance that twisted around my heart. The revelation had a way of seeping into the cracks of one's soul, and I felt painfully exposed. Without warning, the figure lunged towards Miriam. I had no time to think. I shoved the little girl behind me and launched myself at him, adrenaline igniting a fire within me. We collided, bodies colliding with a force that propelled us both against a wall. I gasped in shock at the sheer impact, but my spirit remained unyielding as I pulled myself up from the floor. "Run!" I yelled at the little girl, glancing back at her wide, terrified eyes, willing her to escape. "Get to safety!" The sounds of shuffling feet echoed from the outside as I stood my ground, heart racing. Despite the chaos, there was a flicker of bravado that arose from somewhere deep inside. I couldn't save her by cowering in the shadows, and I couldn't let my sacrifice be in vain. No. "You have to see reason," Miriam pleaded, her voice shaky, a desperate plea cascading through the tension-filled space. "They'll label her a target. You can't let them take her." I chanced a glance over my shoulder. The little girl hesitated, her innocent heart struggling to comprehend the world unraveling around her. In her wide eyes I could see the trembling uncertainty magnified against the starkness of reality. "Please," I whispered almost inaudibly, "trust me." But before she could move, Miriam reached for her hand, pulling her close, her expression softening, pained and conflicted. "I'm the one they want. We can't let them get her. You must trust me." The figure I had wrestled with now lay on the floor, seething despite the setback. Chaos erupting outside. It was then I heard the distant sound of approaching sirens merging with the cries of anarchy. Everything felt like a terrible dream, and I trembled, torn between wanting to run with the little girl and the rising tide of despair washing over us. For every second I stood frozen, the weight of choices coalesced into crushing clarity. The truth I had feared to protect the little girl, I might have to make a choice that would change everything. The memory flashed before day my life shattered, when secrets transformed into chains, dragging me into darkness I had sworn to escape, secrets of a past crumbling under the weight of a new hope. Suddenly, Miriam spoke, her voice resolute. "If you trust me, I can get us out of this. But we must act now." Before I could process, she clasped the little girl's hand tighter, forming a shield against the door of chaos that threatened to rip us apart. The silhouette of the encroaching figure loomed above us, growing darker, more imposing. In that defining moment, I faced them both, awareness crashing through fear mingled with hope, and an inexplicable bond tied us together. I took a deep breath and made a decision, knowing that this revelation was only the beginning, one that would shape our fates in ways I couldn't yet fathom. But as I braced myself to welcome the next surge of inevitable danger, a chilling voice broke through the din of commotion, a voice that shattered my fragile hope. "That's right, Miriam," the figure said, his tone carrying a weight of ominous certainty. "You thought you could escape the past? It's time you faced it." And with that statement, the air thickened with impending doom, as shadows from our past began to merge with the darkness of our present, spiraling us deeper into the maw of uncertainty as the threats closing in. Unraveling our secrets would soon come at a price we could never afford to pay. The sirens grew louder, a cacophony of urgency and panic mingling with our own fears. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, as if the world itself were reeling from the weight of our decisions. Miriam's grip tightened around the little girl's hand, like a lifebuoy tossed into turbulent waters. "Miriam, what do we do?" I found myself breathing out, desperately seeking clarity amidst the chaos. The figure sprawled on the ground, an embodiment of the danger we faced, and the sirens wailed like a banshee, promising both salvation and further torment. But Miriam remained steadfast, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We need to believe that there's a way out. Trust me. I know the back exits." Her voice was steady, yet I could hear a tremor hiding just behind her words, like an echo of the sacrifices she had made. As the figure groaned, shifting to his knees, I felt the little girl's trembling body pressed against me, raw and fragile, a delicate flower against the storm. My heart broke not just for her innocence but for the hard choices that loomed ominously over us. This life had robbed many of their futures, and now it threatened the one I'd sworn to protect. "Listen," I said urgently. "We need to move. Can you lead us out of here?" A part of me felt the weight of betrayal, knowing I was trusting Miriam, someone layered in secrets I could no longer afford to ignore. But there was a flicker of hope in her resolve, a light that called to me. Miriam met my gaze, her expression shifting from fear to fierce protectiveness. With a nod, she took a breath, a signal to summon courage unanticipated. "Follow me, stay close and be quiet." As we maneuvered around the flailing figure, every step felt like a crime against some unspoken law. I could feel the little girl's breath quicken as we slipped past, fear crackling in the air like static electricity. In that moment, it became painfully clear none of us were just fleeing for a moment. We were running against the hurt that had defined our lives. Miriam led us through a narrow corridor, the dim light creating a long shadow that swallowed us whole. I stole a glance back and noticed the figure succumb to his frustration, a low growl rumbling from his throat as he realized we were slipping away. "Almost there," Miriam whispered, her eyes darting ahead while her hand remained firmly anchored to the little girl's. Ahead, the corridor opened into a small storage room, cluttered with forgotten things, items layered with dust that held the stories of those who had come before us. I instinctively pulled the little girl closer, my pulse racing. "Miriam, we can't hide here. We have to keep moving." "I need to find something," she replied, determination ignited in her voice, her hands digging through old boxes as if time were slipping through our fingers. The seconds stretched painfully long, my heart pounding in anticipation. I could almost see the echoes of our predators lurking around every corner, preparing to pounce. "We need a plan," I stressed, the urgency shaping my words. Through the tumult, Miriam finally pulled out a tattered backpack, the fabric frayed along the edges, betraying its numerous journeys. "This contains what we need, a way to navigate our escape," she said, her voice steadying, despite the uncertainty swirling in the room. As she rummaged through the bag, I felt a pang of longing surge within me for the semblances of simpler days, for laughter and safety, things that now felt forever out of reach. But my thoughts faltered when I saw both of them, the little girl, a beacon of hope, and Miriam, a layered mystery wrapped in a shroud of sorrow. In that instant, I realized it was no longer just about survival. It was about the lives we were intertwined with. Just as Miriam turned to us, a loud crash reverberated through the air, the noise ricocheting like a bullet through the stillness of the storeroom. My heart sank as dread enveloped me anew. The figure was on his feet again, rage coursing through him as he drew closer. "You can't run!" he shouted, the taut muscles of his voice pulsing in the encroaching silence. "You think you can escape the inevitable?" In that moment, an unexpected warmth enveloped me. A mere instinct kicked in. "Stay right where you are," I slipped in a low, tracing an invisible line of protection around the little girl. I felt darkness linger, but somehow, in the chaos of our present, there came a flicker of unexpected kindness as Miriam pressed herself against the wall, shielding the child with her body. It was a fleeting embrace, but it was necessary, a reminder of the bonds we forged in desperation. The bonds that made us stronger. "Keep moving," Miriam urged, her voice a fierce whisper. Without thinking, we began to move again, towards an emerging lifeline that promised escape. Yet as we darted forward, a piece of paper slipped from the backpack, fluttering to the ground like a fallen wish. I froze, a sudden sense of understanding washing over me. I had to choose: retrieve the note, or forge ahead into uncertainty. The sirens drew even closer, a tangible reminder of our fleeting time. I glanced back at the little girl whose eyes reflected an innocence we were all desperately trying to protect. Suddenly, a part of me yearned for a complete truth, absorbing the implications of that note, but the thought of dragging her deeper into this peril felt heavier than all my fears combined. "Miriam, we need to go," I urged again, but it felt different now. The weight of the choice hung like a pendulum in the air. "Miriam," I asked, a knot forming in my throat, "what did you hide from us?" Before she could answer, another crash echoed through the halls, and with it, I felt the remnants of our choices close in. The world outside remained frenetic, but for us, it morphed into a pivotal crossroad. What I chose to reveal could redefine everything. But the curious act of the note, fluttering like a surrender, a message that would forever change the landscape of our intertwined fates, lay amidst the chaos. And I knew the true test was not running away, but facing the truth we had crafted from the shadows of our past. The figure's furious voice resonated through the air, a frightening omen of the choices we couldn't yet comprehend. And though something stirred within me in unexpected sorrow for the revelations yet to unfold, I felt uncertainty still coil tightly around my heart. "Follow me," I urged, my voice steady despite the tempest inside me. But as we slipped through the door, that ethereal note had already sealed our fate, and in this crucial, soul-stirring moment, I couldn't shake the haunting feeling that we had just taken our first steps into a very different kind of nightmare. As the air thickened with invisible barriers and precarious truths, we plunged into the unknown, burdened not just by our pasts, but by what the future held for us all. The corridor felt claustrophobic as we darted forward, the sirens now a cacophony of despair pressing against us. Each hurried step echoed the weight of our secrets, the sting of our simultaneous desperation and hope. The little girl clung to my side, her small frame trembling against the rough walls that seemed to whisper their own stories of fear and survival. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, a reflection of all we had shared and all that was yet to come. Miriam led the way, her pace quickening as if she were trying to outpace the shadows that lay in wait. "This way," she urged, and I followed, guilt gnawing at me for the choice I had made not to retrieve that note. It felt as if I had discarded an anchor in the storm, relinquishing a thread of truth that could have tied us to our pasts, or opened doors to revelations we had yet to understand. Out we dashed around a corner, and into a stairwell that spiraled upward, the stale air thickening as we climbed. "Miriam, where are we going?" I asked, each syllable tinged with urgency, but she pressed on, her resolve unbroken. "To the roof." "They won't expect us there," she answered, though I noted a hint of uncertainty beneath her confidence. I grasped the little girl's hand tighter, the weight of our impending choices clogging my throat. When we finally emerged into the bright daylight, I was momentarily blinded, the sun attacking my senses after the oppressive darkness of the stairwell. We stood on the rooftop, where the world below seemed impossibly distant, the chaos muted beneath the hum of wind. "Now what?" I panted, scanning our surroundings for any sign of escape. There were no fire escapes or safe routes down, only the unyielding ledge that marked the edge of desperation. "Look!" Miriam pointed toward a narrow ledge. "If we can make it across to that adjacent building, we'll have a chance." My heart lurched. The gap was more than just a physical space, it represented the vast chasm of fear I would need to conquer. I glanced at the little girl, her determined gaze telling me she was ready for anything. And yet, a whisper of doubt skittered across my mind. What had I brought her into? "Miriam," I pressed, apprehension edging my voice. "What if we fall? What if we—" "No!" she shot back fiercely, cutting through my panic. "We will not fall. We have to believe we can do this." Her words spoke to a wild flame in me, and suddenly, I sensed the truth of her unwavering spirit, a stark contrast to my own doubts. She took a step forward, her body coiled with purpose as she stepped onto the ledge, her arms extended to balance against the rising wind. "Stay close. Trust each other." I could only nod, faltering at the edge. The little girl squeezed my hand, a slight tremble of fear and determination flowing through her grip. At that moment, we were a trio of hope and despair, poised on the precipice of survival. With a deep breath, I stepped forward. The sharp edge of the roof was an uneasy balance between freedom and peril, the gap gaping wide before us. Each movement felt like a heartbeat extended in fear, a leap of faith where every second painted with a brush of doubt. As we inched across, the specter of the figure we had escaped loomed in my mind, urging me to hurry. Halfway across, I caught a glimpse of something shiny glinting in the soon-a-broken shard of glass from a nearby window. It sliced through my thoughts, wrapping me in the fraught memories of choices long forgotten. My heart raced, the weight of my fear battling against the very desire to protect these innocent lives. Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced the air, as the figure burst onto the rooftop behind us where escape faded into danger. It thundered towards us like a tempest, its furious breath quickening my pulse, awakening primal instincts buried deep within. "Keep going!" Miriam yelled, urgency evident in her voice as she yelled to the little girl, urging her onward while I propelled the child ahead of me. I couldn't abandon that flicker of hope encased in her trusting gaze. But just before we reached safety, my foot slipped on the edge of the pavement, my body teetering precariously. Time froze, a shroud of clarity descending upon me. I grasped for something anything to steady myself. I felt the coarse edge of the building beneath my fingers, but gravity laughed at my terrified grasp, demanding the prospect of falling. In a heartbeat, Miriam turned back, her instincts kicking in. "Not on my watch!" she shouted, lunging towards me. She caught me with a grasp so painfully real that I felt the tug of her presence reignite the flame of determination within me. But as I regained my balance, the little girl hesitated, torn between safety and uncertainty. "Come on!" I shouted, my voice cracking as panic bubbled within me. I couldn't lose her. Not now. And then, in a moment of sacrificial brilliance that shattered the air, she lunged, trusting we could catch her. She leaped towards our waiting arms, defiance against fate itself. The world slowed as I saw it all unfolding, Miriam's reach, the gap beneath her tiny feet, the spark of belief that surged through us. As the little girl fell safely into our arms, the shadow of our adversary grew larger against the sun. In that instant, as we all teetered on the edge of survival, a piercing realization washed over me. The true weight of sacrifice could either shatter our foundations or forge unbreakable bonds. But we hadn't finished crossing the chasm. With our enemy now free to ruin everything we fought for, I felt the specter of betrayal loom closer than ever as we moved onward. I squeezed the little girl against me, protective instincts surging, ignited by the flames of what we collectively ran from. Yet I couldn't escape the shattering truth that lay waiting in the shadows, each heartbeat bringing it closer. As we finally made our way to the roof's other edge, another shrill scream broke the tension, a sound so hauntingly familiar that dread flooded my veins. A whisper pushed through me, an echo that clawed at the edges of my memory, a name, a reminder, a photograph overlaid with heartbreak. A little girl, our little girl. But before I could delve deeper into the realization, a new figure appeared on the scene, silhouetted against the sun, unknowingly fracturing the hope I held so tightly. With it came the heavy burden of choices I might have to make, the depths of which could either save us or destroy the tiny bond we had just begun to forge. In that pivotal moment, hope intertwined with terror, and I felt the ground shift yet again beneath our fragile alliance. And the truth of our identity, our past joined in ways we had yet to see, grew heavier with each ticking second. The very people we didn't understand may not have been strangers after all. And as I peered into the eyes of the newcomer, an unshakable feeling engulfed mankind, knowing that everything was about to change, whether we were ready for it or not. The rooftop felt like a canvas stretched taut, every heartbeat painting over the silence that filled the air, tainting it with anticipation. The newcomer figure stepped forth from the brilliance of sunlight, creating a silhouette that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. For a moment, their face was obscured, but a small gasp escaped my lips as recognition gnawed at the edges of my memory. "Mama!" The little girl's voice, bright and unapologetic, shattered the distance that had filled the air between us and the stranger. I felt my chest tighten as her small body bolted toward the figure. Time seemed to warp, elongated by the impending rift I could sense would follow. "No!" I shouted, instinctively lurching forward. The moment the word left my lips, dread coursed through me. This was not just another fledgling acquaintance. This was a reunion sewn from fragments of lost time. As the girl ran, I glimpsed the flash of recognition that crossed the newcomer's face, a fleeting expression painted with love and fear but marred by an unmistakable shadow of consequence. It wasn't simply joy that sparked in their eyes, it felt like an inevitable storm ready to erupt. I could hear the wind howl, a chorus of uncertainty cascading down on us beneath the fierce rhythm of my heart. "Mama?" the little girl repeated, genuine disbelief weaving through her syllables, her innocent trust throwing her into the stranger's outstretched arms. For a split second, I could have sworn everything else faded, a purge of chaos where nothing mattered except for this emotional reunion. But as they embraced, the fragile hope in my heart cracked wide open. What had been a beacon of light now became a chasm full of unspoken truths and unresolved memories. An avalanche of questions ricocheted through my mind. Who was this woman? How had I not recognized her? And in my heart, An ugly thread of hostility wove tightly around the foundation of my emotions. This could lead to either salvation or shattering despair. Miri, I breathed, my voice fading into a whisper that hung in the air between us, the two of us puppets to circumstance, our strings fraying in the wind. What's going on? Miriam had gone still. Confusion crashed against the steadiness of her resolve, replaced now with a raw vulnerability I had not experienced from her until this moment. She's the one I've been trying to find, she stammered. But not like this. Not here, why? I pressed, a desperate need to understand surging forth. Fear wrestled with curiosity as the tension thickened around us. Who is she? What do you mean you've been trying to find her? But before Miriam could find her voice, the new woman knelt before the little girl, her hands gently cupping the child's face. I thought I lost you forever, she murmured, a hitch trembling through her tones. I never wanted to leave you. The admission crackled through our gathering storm, igniting a blend of heartache within me. Yet, in that beautiful moment, I felt the ground shift beneath us, a disquieting tremor that unseated the tenuous peace I had barely grasped. Regret danced cruelly just out of reach, tagging at the back of my mind. I had chosen not to retrieve that precious note. A note that now, I feared, held far more weight than I could comprehend. Please, I interjected hastily before I lost the breathlessness of the moment. We can't trust her. What if this is a trap? What if? But before I could finish, the girl turned back to me, eyes wild with the flicker of trust she had once bestowed, now clouded with the heavy shadows of incertitude. But she is my mama! There was desperation mingled with legitimacy in her plea, and it seemed to weigh heavily against all the fears I had nurtured until now. The woman's gaze traveled from the little girl to me, and suddenly I felt the burden of a shared history thrumming between us, not of personal affection, but of unbidden sorrow entwined with undying hope. You don't understand, she said, her voice raw. I didn't have a choice. A chill coursed through me, her revelation a cruel acceptance of reality. It reminded me of my own choice show. They had spiraled like dancers caught in a whirlwind of their making. What do you mean? What happened that made you leave her? The woman opened her mouth as if to speak but faltered, her thoughts clawing for a way through the haze of guilt and an unknown fear that had encased her. Meanwhile, flickers of darkness surged from behind, where the echoes of our pursuer thrummed with relentless determination, a reminder of the anguish that awaited should we falter. We don't have time, Miriam interrupted, her voice steadier now. We need to get to safety first. There will be time for explanations later. I caught the panic in her eyes. It mirrored my own as the sounds of pursuit intensified. But even amidst that urgency, I remained rooted in a web of complex emotions, the looming truth shading everything gray. Please, let's go, I urged, desperation lodging in my throat. We had barely escaped one storm, only to potentially tumble into another. Yet something held me back. The disparity of emotions tugged and yanked against my heart. And then, as if reading my thoughts, the woman took a step forward, her face transforming with fierce determination as clarity dawned. You have to believe in her if you want to save her, she said softly, yet each word was a battle cry of refusal to let fear dictate our choices. The little girl looked to me, her tiny form a juxtaposition of innocence and a wisdom far beyond her years. She really is my mama, and I love her. They were wrong about everything, she declared fiercely, and in her statement, I understood a damning truth about trust. This was no simple reunion. Woven within it were choices long buried by despair, as well as heart-wrenching sacrifices I had yet to comprehend. In that moment, beneath rising stakes and waves of tumult, I realized our paths converged in a way I had not anticipated. I was standing at a crossroads, where the choices of a past not my own pressed heavily upon my heart. But the roar of footsteps reminded me of our imminent danger, pulling me from the depths of despair long enough for clarity to spark. As we turned toward the edge, looking for the best way down, the air grew heavier. Uncertainty mingled with the ferocity of survival as I considered what we would face in the coming moments. Trust had become a currency I was loath to spend, yet between us an unbreakable bond was taking shape. Because sometimes, in the most intense moments of turmoil, It was the hope of a little girl's belief that could potentially change everything for an estranged mother fighting for redemption, and for me, it would either unlock my past or unravel the tenuous threads that had kept me tied to my own heartbreak. With one final glance back at the looming figure of betrayal chasing us, an unyielding certainty caught hold of my heart. Whatever awaited us around the corner could either destroy or build, and with every step we took, I could already feel the seams beginning to unravel in ways that would lead us far beyond the fragile understandings we had once held so dearly. As we descended into the cascade of uncertainty beneath us, the weight of our unspoken truths hung heavy in the air. Down the narrow staircase that cramped our souls, the echoes of our footfalls reverberated like heartbeat drumbeats, merging with the sirens still clamoring for our attention. Each step felt like an eternity, an existential passage layered with loss, a reminder of promises made and bonds tangled in a web of heartache. The girl, nestled firmly within my grasp, led us deeper into the darkness, her eyes resolute. For all her smallness, she exuded a courage that sparked bravery within me. We were traversing not just physical space, but an emotional terrain laden with secrets urgently waiting to be unearthed. I turned to Miriam, my heart racing. "Are we really safe?" I was a drowning swimmer, grasping for means of buoyancy, my voice cracking against the weight of vulnerability. "Yes," she replied fiercely, determination etched in every word. "I swear it." But the uncertainty clung like the humidity before a storm, the shadows creeping closer, ready to engulf us. Clutching the girl's hand, I felt her reliance on me, each twitch of her fingers brushing against the cusp of my fears. I had promised to protect her, yet the deeper I delved into the folds of Miriam's reality, the more I saw my own unravel. Rounding a corner, we hastened into a concealed entryway, a door towards unseen futures, and as we slipped through its threshold, the air shifted around us. A suffocating silence surrounded the room, dimly lit with splatters of fading nostalgia. It was the calm before the storm, a moment suspended in the unknowing. For a flicker of eternity, I relished the heaviness of our shared breaths, the three of us pooling our hearts together as a lifeline against the wrath of what we had evaded. But as I turned to look at Miriam, her expression unfurling like delicate petals, everything I had pressed upon was about to explode. "Miriam," I said, the weight of her choices pressing against my consciousness, "what did you leave behind? What happened?" I thought I'd lost her for good," she stammered, running her fingers through her hair, shaking the chains that bound her submerged feelings into the light. The vulnerability radiated off her, causing my heart to flutter with fear mingled with an odd sense of solidarity. The girl clung tighter to me, confusion blossoming in her shining eyes. "Why is everyone sad?" she asked, the innocent query slicing through the heavy atmosphere weighing us down. "Are we safe now?" Miriam's gaze shifted from me to the girl, and as she opened her mouth to respond, I felt an alarming dread wash over me. Unraveling the truth before the safety of silence had formed bonds that could either save us or shatter us completely. "We will be," Miriam said finally, her voice trembling like the memory of hope lingering in the air. "If we confront the truth together, we can protect you." Before I could ponder further, the door behind us trembled violently as heavy footsteps crashed against it, shattering our moment of reunion. My heart raced, drenched in reality that enveloped us. "We have to be quick," I urged, hastily scanning our surroundings. My instincts were screaming, driving me to shield the girl, to protect our fragile unity from the tempest that raged. As I turned back towards Miriam, the girl staring at us with eyes wide as saucers, ready for answers, the urgency coiled tightly around my heart. Unapologetic tears began to bubble. The desperation stewing within me was an emotional tide ready to break free. "It's not just about running," I implored. "We need the truth to be set free." Miriam's eyes shone with unshed tears, and I knew she carried burdens heavier than anything I had ever known. "I thought running away would protect her from who I was," she confessed, the tremor of her voice slicing through the silence. "But the past doesn't vanish. It only hides, folds into the corners of our lives, waiting for the right moment to break free." The small girl squeezed my hand gently, her voice innocent yet charged. "But I want my mommy." The air grew still, and in that charged silence, I felt every heartbeat connect us, the truths we longed to confront hanging tentatively between us, offering an outstretched hand of hope. The heaviness that draped the room began to lift, flickering with potential futures. "There's so much about my life you don't know," Miriam pressed, her eyes desperately searching mine. Each word echoed memories shattered like glass, brimming with heartache. "But I promise I will never leave you again." I promise. Suddenly, the door cracked open, a silhouette breaking into our hardened space, ready to drag us back into turmoil. My instincts surged, propelled by the rush of raw emotion I had spent so many years burying. "Run!" I bellowed, "get to the exit!" But just as we began to move, the stranger's voice boomed through my very bones, shattering everything. "Stop right there!" The glow of recognition hit me, unveiling the man lurking behind our shadows. This wasn't just a menace, this was the darkness of our intertwined past. "What have you done, Miriam?" the girl faltered, glancing between the stranger and Miriam, uncertainty cascading through her fragile form. "Mama, who is he?" she asked, and I saw the heart-wrenching realization wash over Miriam like a baptism of truth. "I can't let you take her," she said, stepping protectively in front of the girl, a fierce determination radiating through her. But I knew that unvarnished truth dared to break through the truth that our desires and losses cast a web of consequences that had already suffocated far too many lives. "Stop this nonsense!" the man raged, breaking into a forward motion, fueled by aggrieved torment. I stepped in front of Miriam and the girl, summoning every ounce of defiance that clung like oxygen in the air, pairing fear with dormant strength. "Let her go," I demanded, each word a clarion call, resonating not just as a statement but alive with heart-wrenching emotion. "You won't hurt her." The man hesitated, taken aback by the steadiness of my defiance, and for just a moment, we all stood suspended, the pendulum of fate dangerously close to swinging, fate that lay upon my choices, upon the unbroken bonds of a little girl's trust in her mother. "Stand down, or face the consequences of your actions," he warned again, but behind that bluster, I could see the wires of tension creeping up his spine, burdened by the insistence of inevitability. But just as I thought he would falter, the darkness surged forth. Miriam's voice cut through it, trembling yet fierce. "You will not take her from me. She deserves to be free from the past." "We all do." In that moment of reckoning, I united my heart with her declaration, pulsing through every fiber of my being. Memories clamored in my mind, the suffocation of secrets, the burdens of running from who we once were clashing against the possibility of who we could become. And suddenly, I saw the path before us. The choices forming the tapestry of our lives was not merely tangled, it was intricate, delicate, shaped with love lost along the way but woven with hope we could reclaim. With newfound strength, I focused on the little girl, holding tight to her hands. "You believe in love, don't you?" I whispered. "We can overcome the darkness because love transforms fear into choice." Her small face lit up, and I sensed the weight of her belief coiling around us like a lifeline. The man surged forward, but before he could reach us, I took a single step back, drawing strength from the fragile connection we built within that sacred space. "This ends now. You no longer own our narrative." In a visceral moment of heartfelt clarity, I felt an electricity in the air that ripped through the very fabric of despair, a crescendo of compassion reawakening. The sirens outside morphed into a chorus of frantic hope, drowning the impending chaos around us with songs of unity. So be it. The man spat, and before I could prepare, he lunged towards us with unabated fury, and I braced for impact. But in a moment that shimmered like fragile glass shattering against the pavement, Miriam moved forward, embodying bravery like I had never witnessed. "For love I will lay down my fears and claim the light," she shouted, her words echoing against the chaos, empowerment exuding from her soul. As she stood tall, an unyielding force beneath the tempest, the energy pulsating through our dynamics morphed the atmosphere, forming our next collective step. And just as the man drew closer, the room burst into light, brilliant and blinding, illuminating truths once shrouded in doubt. The shadows receded in our moment of shared courage, and I felt warmth wrap around us like an embracing cocoon. The heaviness that clung to us began to dissolve because at that moment, we truly understood, confronting our pasts did not mean surrendering, it meant choosing to rise. As the light enveloped us, I held the little girl firmly, My heart resonated with clarity. We face our truth together, and together we will thrive, I vowed, strength intertwining our souls. And as we stepped toward that blinding light, the man's figure flickered, disintegrating into the ether, a testament to the power of confronting darkness through love. The burdens we had carried threatened to diminish, replaced with a sense that hope could heal, reconstructing everything we held dear. Together, hand in hand, we breached through the chasm into a new dawn, where the horizon held a myriad of possibilities woven into a fabric that now shimmered with love, grace, and an unbreakable bond bound by forgiveness. I and that final heartbeat. As we emerged onto the other side of light where love touched the edges of our souls, I turned to see the little girl. Her laughter spilled into the air, a beautiful sound that curled around my heart, whispering promises of hope that echoed into infinity. And it was then that I knew we had truly crossed not just the bridge of despair, but into the embrace of possibility, a choice to reclaim our truths, not as shadows, but as the radiant light we were always meant to be. For the light within us was stronger than the darkness we left behind, and with every whispered promise and pledge of love, we forged a path home even through the cracks of our pain. And as we took our first steps together towards that shining future, I whispered into the wind, releasing all I had held onto, a gentle reminder of the beauty of rebirth woven amidst our struggles. The final truth seeped deep into my heart, blending with the air I breathed. In the face of love, we reclaim the right to choose, and we become the authors of our destinies. As those words lingered, rippling through the air like the most sacred of hymns, I finally understood our journey was merely beginning, where love was not an ending but a blossoming, an infinite leap toward the freedom we had long sought.